Have you ever met someone who's basically a walking encyclopedia but seems to struggle with even simple real-world problems? Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating argument that kind of flips our whole idea of learning on its head. It suggests that what really makes you capable isn't what you know, but how you think. And this quote from our source material just, wow, it hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that frustrating reality so many people see. Students who can recite every fact, every formula, but then they just freeze when they're faced with a question they haven't seen before. This is the central conflict we're exploring today. That huge gap between knowing something and actually being able to do something with it. All right, so let's start by unpacking what the source calls the knowledge paradox. It's this strange phenomenon where having a head crammed full of facts doesn't actually translate into being capable. The core issue it points to is that we're filling kids with information, but we're forgetting to give them the tools to actually use it. So what's the real problem here? According to the source, it's not a lack of knowledge. Not at all. The real missing piece is something way more crucial: a system for thinking. Think about it like this. It's the difference between owning a massive library full of books and actually knowing how to read, connect the ideas within them, and then write your own story. Now, this slide really breaks down that core distinction for us. On one side, you've got knowledge, or znanie in the original text, which is basically a static inventory. It's a list of facts, formulas, definitions. It's the stuff you have. But then on the other side, you have thinking, myślenie. And that's a whole different ballgame. That's a dynamic process for using that knowledge. It's what you do. One is just passive storage. The other is the active engine that makes it all work. And this is exactly where the cracks start to show. The source points to these specific failure points. When the pressure's on, when a student is scared of getting it wrong, all that knowledge by itself is pretty useless. It doesn't teach you how to calm down and focus. When you're overloaded with information, it doesn't give you a system for sorting through the noise. And maybe the biggest failure of all, that knowledge gets trapped inside the textbook, unable to make the jump into the real world. And this failure to develop a system for thinking, it isn't some harmless little problem. The source argues it kicks off a very predictable and pretty damaging downward spiral. It even maps out this grim trajectory for a child over just 3 years. And just look at this timeline. It shows exactly how things go from bad to worse. In year 1, the child is still trying, They're putting in the effort. By year 2, that trying turns into surviving. They're just treading water, barely keeping their head up. And by the 3rd year, they just give up. They start hiding, avoiding challenges, and they internalize this absolutely devastating conclusion: I'm stupid. And the tragedy is, it was never about them being stupid. It was about not having the right tools. Okay, so how do you fix this? The source proposes a pretty radical shift in focus. Instead of just trying to cram more knowledge into someone's head, the solution is to train thinking itself, to treat the mind like a muscle that you can strengthen, hone, and make genuinely powerful. This slide contrasts the two approaches perfectly. You've got the old way, which the source is really critical of. It's all about repetition, cramming, and being driven by a fear of failure. But the proposed way is completely different. It's about genuine understanding, not just memorizing. It's about connecting ideas, not just listing them. And crucially, it's about taking action, not being afraid of it. This brings us to the ultimate goal of this whole process. The source argues that developing a real system of thinking isn't just about getting better grades. No, it's about a fundamental transformation in a person's ability to actually go out and navigate the world. And this journey is laid out in 3 simple but really profound steps. You start at step 1, I know or znajo. That's the baseline, just having the information. The critical leap is to step 2, I can think, umeju dumać. This is where you build the system. But the final transformative destination is step 3, I can live, umeju żyć. And that's where thinking becomes so integrated that it empowers you to confidently and capably live your life. So naturally, after laying out this entire argument, from the problem to the consequences to the solution, the source material concludes with its intended purpose. It all builds up to a call to action, directing the audience to a webinar that it says is designed to teach these very systems of thinking, memory, and focus. And that leaves us with this final crucial question to chew on. When we see someone struggle to apply what they know, should we blame the gaps in their knowledge? Or should we maybe look deeper at the absence of a system for thinking? It's a powerful idea to reflect on.